Maya Williams adjusted her worn leather messenger bag as she stepped into the marble lobby of Sterling Industries' Manhattan headquarters. The 24-year-old had traveled from her small apartment in Queens, spending her last $20 on subway fare and a coffee to calm her nerves. Today's interview could change everything. The receptionist, a blonde woman with perfectly manicured nails, barely looked up from her computer screen. "You're here for the translator position?" "Yes, I'm Maya Williams. I have a 2 o'clock appointment." The woman's eyes swept over Maya's modest black dress and scuffed flats with obvious disapproval. "Take a seat. Mr. Sterling will see you shortly." Maya settled into one of the expensive leather chairs, trying not to feel intimidated by the opulent surroundings. Crystal chandeliers hung from the vaulted ceiling, and original paintings adorned the walls. Everything screamed money and power. 20 minutes passed before a tall man in an expensive suit emerged from the elevator. Richard Sterling was exactly what Maya had expected from the photos she'd seen online: silver hair, sharp blue eyes, and the confident bearing of someone who'd never known financial struggle. "Miss Williams?" His tone was polite but distant. "I'm Richard Sterling. Please follow me." They rode the elevator to the 42nd floor in silence. Sterling's corner office was even more impressive than the lobby, with floor-to-ceiling windows offering a breathtaking view of Central Park. "Please, have a seat," Sterling said, settling behind his massive mahogany desk. He opened a file and studied Maya's resume with a frown. Columbia University, summa cum laude, linguistics degree. Impressive grades, but he paused, his expression skeptical. "You claim to speak 9 languages fluently. That's quite ambitious for someone your age." Maya straightened in her chair. She'd heard that tone before, the subtle condescension that questioned whether a young black woman from Queens could possibly possess such abilities. "It's not a claim, Mr. Sterling. I do speak 9 languages fluently." Sterling leaned back in his chair, a slight smirk playing at the corners of his mouth. "Of course you do. Let me guess, Spanish, because you probably grew up in a diverse neighborhood, French from high school, maybe some basic German." The dismissive tone stung, but Maya kept her voice steady. "Actually, I speak English, Spanish, French, German, Italian, Portuguese, Mandarin Chinese, Arabic, and Russian." Sterling's chuckle was barely concealed. "Russian and Mandarin Arabic. Ms. Williams, I appreciate confidence, but claiming expertise in languages that take decades to master—" "I'm not claiming expertise. Mr. Sterling, I have it, right." He glanced at his expensive watch, clearly ready to end the interview. "Well, this position requires someone who can handle high-level diplomatic communications. We work with government officials, international business leaders, heads of state. One misinterpreted phrase could cost us millions." Maya felt her frustration building. She'd worked 3 jobs to pay for her education, spent countless hours in language labs, and sacrificed social activities to study. Her linguistic abilities weren't a product of privilege or expensive tutoring. They were earned through sheer determination and natural aptitude. "I understand the stakes, Mr. Sterling. That's exactly why you need someone with proven abilities. Not just expensive credentials, proven abilities." Sterling's eyebrows rose. "What proof do you have beyond what's written on your resume?" "Anyone can claim fluency." Maya reached into her bag and pulled out a thick folder. Letters of recommendation from professors at Columbia, the Sorbonne, and Beijing University. Certificates from the Defense Language Institute. Documentation of my work as a volunteer interpreter at the UN Refugee Center. Sterling barely glanced at the documents. "Miss Williams, I'm sure you're very enthusiastic about languages, but this position requires someone with real-world experience in high-pressure situations. Someone who's worked with international corporations, not volunteered at community centers." The condescension in his voice was unmistakable now. Maya realized that no amount of credentials would matter to him. He'd already decided that someone like her couldn't possibly possess the abilities she claimed. "I see," Maya said quietly, gathering her documents. "So experience with refugees who fled war zones, helping families navigate complex legal proceedings in their native languages. That doesn't count as high-pressure situations? Sterling's expression didn't change. It's a different kind of pressure entirely. Corporate negotiations, diplomatic protocols, these require a certain sophistication. Maya stood up, her dignity intact despite the obvious rejection. "Thank you for your time, Mr. Sterling." As she reached the door, Sterling called out, almost as an afterthought, "Just out of curiosity, where did you supposedly learn all these languages?" It's quite an ambitious claim. Maya turned back, meeting his skeptical gaze directly. "My grandmother fled Hungary during the revolution and spoke only Hungarian and German at home. My mother learned Spanish working in Miami before I was born. I picked up Portuguese from our Brazilian neighbors and Italian from the family who ran the restaurant where I worked through high school." She paused, watching his expression remain unchanged. "I learned French in school, yes, but perfected it during a summer program at the Sorbonne that I paid for by working double shifts. Chinese came from my roommate at Columbia, whose family owned a restaurant in Chinatown. She taught me Mandarin, and I helped her with English literature, and Arabic and Russian." Sterling's tone suggested he thought this was where her story would fall apart. "Arabic from the imam at our local mosque who offered free lessons to community members. He was originally from Lebanon and wanted to preserve the language among young people. Russian." Maya smiled slightly. "My chess partner at the community center was an elderly man from Moscow. He'd only speak Russian during our games. Took me 2 years to beat him." Sterling was quiet for a moment, but Maya could see he remained unconvinced. "Quite a story, Ms. Williams." "It's not a story, Mr. Sterling, it's my life." As Maya waited for the elevator, she heard Sterling's assistant booking his next appointment. She recognized the name Jonathan Blackwood. Son of a prominent diplomat, Harvard-educated, probably spoke French with a prep school accent and considered himself worldly for spending a semester in London. The elevator doors closed, and Maya descended from the world of marble and mahogany back to the bustling streets of Manhattan. She'd known it was a long shot, but the dismissal still stung. Not because she hadn't gotten the job, but because Sterling hadn't even given her a real chance to demonstrate her abilities. Walking toward the subway, Maya pulled out her phone and saw a missed call from her mother. Carmen Williams worked 2 jobs, cleaning offices at night and serving lunch at a diner during the day, to help support Maya's dreams. "How did it go, Mia?" Carmen asked when Maya called back. "About as expected," Maya replied, not wanting to worry her mother with the details of Sterling's condescension. "His loss, baby. The right opportunity will come." Maya smiled despite her disappointment. Her mother's faith in her never wavered, even when others couldn't see past their preconceptions. As she descended into the subway station, Maya didn't notice the black sedan pulling up outside Sterling Industries building, or the small group of serious-looking individuals in dark suits entering the lobby. She had no way of knowing that in approximately 30 minutes, Richard Sterling's dismissive afternoon was about to take a dramatic turn. The phone call he was expecting from the Japanese Ministry of Trade would arrive early, and with it, a crisis that would test every assumption he'd made about language, competence, and the young woman he'd just sent away. Richard Sterling had barely settled back into his desk chair when his assistant's voice crackled through the intercom. "Mr. Sterling, I have Minister Tanaka from Tokyo on line 1. He says it's urgent." Sterling frowned and glanced at his calendar. The call with the Japanese Ministry of Trade wasn't scheduled until tomorrow morning. He picked up the phone, switching to his most diplomatic tone. "Minister Tanaka, what a pleasant surprise. How can I help you?" The voice on the other end was tense, speaking rapidly in accented English. "Mr. Sterling, we have very serious problem. The contaminated shipment from your German subsidiary, it has arrived in Tokyo port today, not next week as scheduled." Sterling's blood ran cold. The shipment Minister Tanaka referred to was supposed to be quarantined chemicals from Sterling Industries' Frankfurt facility. They weren't contaminated. That was a mistranslation that had caused weeks of diplomatic headaches. The materials were actually highly purified compounds for medical research, but somewhere in the chain of communication between German, Japanese, and English speakers, critical details had been lost. "Minister Tanaka, I believe there's been another miscommunication. These materials are not contaminated. Our German team has been trying to clarify. No, no, Mr. Sterling, the minister interrupted. We have documents in German that clearly state contaminiert. Our translator confirms this means contaminated. Port Authority is preparing to destroy entire shipment. This will cost your company $50 million, and our medical research program will be delayed by months. Sterling's mind raced. He knew the German word contaminiert was being misunderstood. In the context of their shipment, it likely referred to controlled containment protocols, not contamination. But his German wasn't strong enough to explain the nuance, and Minister Tanaka's translator was clearly making the same error. Minister, please wait. Let me conference in our German facility manager to clarify. Mr. Sterling, my German translator is here now with the documents. She is very qualified, graduated from Tokyo University with German studies. But perhaps your German colleague can explain directly? Sterling immediately called his Frankfurt office, but it was past business hours in Germany. His facility manager, Klaus Weber, wouldn't be available until the next morning, too. Late to prevent the destruction of the shipment. 20 minutes of increasingly frustrated conversation followed. Minister Tanaka's translator, speaking in careful English, insisted the documents clearly indicated contaminated materials requiring immediate destruction. Sterling knew she was wrong, but his basic German vocabulary couldn't bridge the technical gap. I am very sorry, Mr. Sterling, Minister Tanaka finally said. If we cannot verify safety of these materials by 5 o'clock, Tokyo time, that is 3 hours from now, Port Authority will incinerate entire shipment. This is Japanese law for contaminated materials. The call ended, leaving Sterling staring at his phone in disbelief. $50 million worth of medical research compounds were about to be destroyed because of a translation error, and he had no way to fix it. His assistant, Jennifer, appeared in his doorway. Mr. Sterling? You look pale. Is everything all right? Get me our best translator, now, someone who speaks fluent German and Japanese. Jennifer's face fell. Sir, our Japanese translator is in Hawaii for his daughter's wedding, and our German specialist called in sick with food poisoning. I can try the agency we usually use, but on such short notice. Sterling ran his hands through his hair. What about that temp agency? Surely they have someone with language skills. I'll call immediately, but sir, most agencies don't have translators with that combination of languages available on short notice. And for technical documents like these? As Jennifer hurried to make calls, Sterling found himself thinking about the morning's interview. Maya Williams had claimed to speak German and Chinese, which was close to Japanese in terms of difficulty. But he dismissed the thought immediately. Even if she really spoke those languages, this was a $50 million crisis requiring expertise, not a recent college graduate with questionable credentials. 30 minutes later, Jennifer returned with grim news. Sir, the 3 agencies I contacted all say the same thing. They have German speakers and Japanese speakers, but no one available today who's fluent in both. The earliest they could provide someone is tomorrow afternoon. Sterling's phone rang again. Minister Tanaka's voice was even more strained than before. Mr. Sterling, I have more bad news. Our port security has found additional documents in the shipment. They appear to be in Arabic and Russian. Our translator cannot read these, but she believes they may contain additional safety warnings. This makes the situation much more serious. Sterling's heart sank. Arabic and Russian? His Frankfurt facility didn't use those languages for documentation. Someone along the supply chain had included additional papers, probably safety certifications from previous handling facilities. Without proper translation, they would look suspicious to Japanese authorities. Minister Tanaka, those documents are likely just standard safety certifications from various handling facilities along the shipping route. If I could just get someone to translate them properly. Mr. Sterling, you have 2 hours and 15 minutes. If we cannot verify complete safety of these materials in all languages present, destruction will proceed. After the call ended, Sterling sat in stunned silence. His company's reputation, $50 million, and a crucial partnership with Japanese medical researchers all hung in the balance. And the solution required something he'd never needed before, a translator who could handle German, Japanese, Arabic, and Russian simultaneously. Jennifer knocked softly on his door. "Sir, I hate to interrupt, but I remembered something. That young woman who interviewed this afternoon, didn't she claim to speak multiple languages including German and Arabic?" Sterling's jaw tightened. "Miss Williams claimed a lot of things, Jennifer. This isn't the time for desperate measures." "Of course, sir. But I did notice she left her contact information and she mentioned having experience with technical documents." Sterling stared at the business card Jennifer placed on his desk. "Maya Williams, Linguistic Services?" Below her name, in small print, were the flags of 9 different countries, his pride warred with desperation. Everything he'd built, every assumption he'd made about competence and credentials, was being challenged by circumstances beyond his control. The young woman he'd dismissed just hours ago might be the only person in New York City who could save his company from disaster. Sir. Jennifer's voice was gentle. "Should I try calling her?" Sterling picked up Maya's card, studying the confident handwriting of her phone number. Outside his window, the afternoon sun was beginning to cast long shadows across Central Park in Tokyo. Morning was approaching, bringing with it the deadline that would either save or destroy months of work and millions of dollars. He thought about Maya's calm demeanor during the interview, the way she'd maintained her dignity despite his obvious skepticism, the detailed explanations of how she'd learned each language, stories that had seemed too convenient to be true. "Sir?" Jennifer prompted again. Sterling made his decision, reaching for his phone. "Get her on the line, now." As Jennifer dialed, Sterling found himself hoping that Maya Williams was exactly what she claimed to be. Because if she wasn't, his company was about to face one of the most expensive translation errors in corporate history. The phone rang once, twice, 3 times. Finally, a familiar voice answered. "Hello, this is Maya Williams." Sterling took a deep breath, swallowing his pride. "Miss Williams, this is Richard Sterling. I have a proposition for you." There was a pause on the other end of the line. When Maya spoke again, her voice was carefully neutral. "I'm listening, Mr. Sterling. I need a translator. Someone who can handle German, Japanese, Arabic, and Russian technical documents. It's urgent. Lives and $50 million are at stake. Can you help me?" Another pause. Sterling found himself holding his breath, waiting for her response to a request that would have seemed impossible just hours ago when he'd dismissed her from his office. "Mr. Sterling," Maya said finally, "I'll be there in 30 minutes. Maya Williams walked back into Sterling Industries' marble lobby exactly 31 minutes later, this time carrying a larger bag filled with dictionaries, reference materials, and her laptop. The same blonde receptionist who had barely acknowledged her earlier now watched with obvious curiosity as Maya was immediately escorted to Richard Sterling's office. Sterling stood as she entered, his earlier confidence replaced by barely concealed anxiety. "Miss Williams, thank you for coming so quickly. I need to be completely honest with you about the situation." Maya settled into the chair across from his desk, her expression professional. "I'm listening." "We have a shipment of medical research compounds sitting in Tokyo port. The Japanese authorities believe the materials are contaminated based on German documentation, but I know it's a translation error. They also found additional papers in Arabic and Russian that they can't read. If we can't provide accurate translations and verify the safety of these materials within the next 90 minutes, Japan will destroy $50 million worth of compounds and end our partnership." Sterling paused, studying Maya's face for any sign of doubt or panic. Instead, she simply opened her bag and pulled out a notebook. "What specific German term is causing the confusion?" she asked. "The Japanese translator is reading contaminert as contaminated, but in our context, it should mean controlled containment protocols." Maya nodded thoughtfully. "And you need me to translate the German documents into Japanese, plus interpret whatever's written in Arabic and Russian?" "Yes, but Ms. Williams... Sterling hesitated, his earlier skepticism still evident. "This isn't just about translation. One wrong word could destroy lives. These compounds are destined for cancer research. If the Japanese medical program is delayed because of our error— Mr. Sterling, Maya interrupted gently, you called me because you need help. Either you trust my abilities or you don't. Which is it? Sterling met her steady gaze, remembering his dismissive attitude from just hours before. I trust you, he said finally. Jennifer appeared with a laptop connected to Sterling's secure server. The German documents are loaded, and Minister Tanaka is standing by for a conference call. We also have the photos of the Arabic and Russian papers. Maya pulled the laptop toward her and began scrolling through the German documentation. Her eyes moved quickly across the technical language, occasionally making notes in her notebook. Sterling watched nervously, trying to gauge her comprehension from her expression. This is exactly what you thought, Maya said after several minutes. The German documents are using Kontaminiert to describe containment protocols, not contamination. The compounds are sealed in Level 4 biocontainment units for transport safety. Not because they're dangerous. She continued reading, her fluency in German obvious as she navigated complex technical terminology without hesitation. The confusion comes from this section here, she pointed to a paragraph dense with scientific language. The German text explains that the compounds are in Kontaminierter Umgebung versiegelt, sealed in a controlled environment. But if you translate that literally word by word, it would seem like they're sealed because of contamination, not sealed for protection. Sterling felt the first glimmer of hope. Can you explain that distinction to Minister Tanaka? Absolutely. But first, let me look at the Arabic and Russian documents. Maya opened the photo files and immediately began reading the Arabic text aloud, translating as she went. This is a safety certification from a facility in Dubai where the shipment was temporarily stored. It confirms that the containers remain sealed and were stored according to international protocols for sensitive medical materials. Her Arabic pronunciation was flawless, with the fluid rhythm of someone truly comfortable with the language. Sterling found himself genuinely impressed for the first time. And the Russian documents? Maya switched to the Cyrillic text, reading with the same ease she'd shown with Arabic. These are from a freight handling company in Moscow. They're certifying that the shipment was transferred without opening any containers and was kept at the required temperature throughout transport. She looked up at Sterling. Both documents actually strengthen your case. They prove the compounds have been handled properly at every step. The Japanese authorities should be reassured, not concerned. Sterling's phone rang, Minister Tanaka calling for an update. Are you ready to conference with him? Maya nodded confidently. Put him through. Sterling activated the speakerphone, his heart racing. Minister Tanaka, I have Maya Williams here, our linguistic specialist who can address the documentation concerns. Ms. Williams, Minister Tanaka's voice was tense. My translator insists the German documents indicate contaminated materials. Can you explain this discrepancy? Maya responded in fluent Japanese, her pronunciation crisp and formal. Sterling couldn't understand her words, but Minister Tanaka's sharp intake of breath was audible. After several minutes of rapid Japanese conversation, Minister Tanaka switched back to English. Miss Williams speaks excellent Japanese, Mr. Sterling. She has explained the German terminology, and I am beginning to understand the confusion. Maya continued, seamlessly switching between languages as she addressed specific concerns. When Minister Tanaka's translator questioned a technical term, Maya explained it in both German and Japanese, even providing the kanji characters for complex scientific concepts. The Arabic and Russian documents, Maya continued in Japanese before translating for Sterling's benefit, are additional safety certifications that prove the shipment's integrity. They're not warnings, they're confirmations of proper handling. The conversation continued for nearly an hour. Maya answered every question with confidence, provided exact translations of technical terms, and even helped Minister Tanaka's translator understand where her initial interpretations had gone wrong. Sterling watched in amazement as Maya effortlessly navigated between languages, adjusting her tone and formality level appropriately for each language's cultural context. Her German was precise and technical, her Japanese respectfully formal, her Arabic flowing and confident, and her Russian crisp and professional. "Miss Williams," Minister Tanaka finally said, "I am very impressed with your linguistic abilities and your understanding of these technical matters. Based on your explanations, I am convinced that these materials are safe and properly documented." Sterling felt his shoulders relax for the first time in hours. "However," Minister Tanaka continued, "I must ask that you provide written translations of all documents for our permanent records. Can this be done quickly?" "Of course," Maya replied. "I can have complete translations ready within 2 hours." After the call ended, Sterling stared at Maya with a mixture of admiration and embarrassment. "I owe you an apology, Ms. Williams, and apparently a great deal more than that." Maya smiled slightly. "The apology is accepted, Mr. Sterling. As for the rest, I think we should discuss my employment terms." Sterling laughed, a sound of genuine relief and respect. "Name your salary requirements. After what you just did, I don't think I'm in a position to negotiate." "Actually, I have a different proposal," Maya said, closing her laptop. "I don't want to work for Sterling Industries. I want to work with Sterling Industries as an independent contractor. This crisis showed me something important about the corporate world's language needs." She stood up, gathering her materials with the same calm confidence she'd shown throughout the crisis. "Companies like yours need linguistic services, but you need them from someone who understands that language isn't just about vocabulary and grammar. It's about culture, context, and human connection." Sterling found himself nodding, recognizing the truth in her words. "What exactly are you proposing?" "A consulting partnership. I'll handle your international communications, document translations, and cultural liaison services. In return, you provide me with office space, administrative support, and first client referrals. Within a year, we'll both have something more valuable than an employer-employee relationship." As Maya headed toward the door, she paused and looked back at Sterling. "By the way, Mr. Sterling, I really do speak 9 languages fluently. But more importantly, I understand that each language carries the hopes, fears, and dreams of the people who speak it. That's not something you can learn from textbooks or expensive tutoring." Sterling watched her leave, realizing that his assumptions about competence, credentials, and capability had been fundamentally challenged in the space of a single afternoon. The young woman he'd dismissed based on preconceptions had just saved his company from disaster and offered him a partnership that could transform how his business operated globally. 6 months later, Williams Language Solutions occupied a full floor of Sterling Industries building. Maya had successfully handled diplomatic communications for 3 government agencies, prevented 2 other major corporate translation disasters, and built a reputation as one of New York's most sought-after linguistic consultants. Sterling often told the story of their first meeting to other business leaders, always ending with the same observation: "The most expensive mistake I almost made wasn't financial. It was assuming that talent looks a certain way or comes from certain backgrounds." Maya's success came not just from her linguistic abilities, but from her understanding that true communication